Around 3,000 years ago, the most powerful man on Earth may have been killed by a wasp. Not by an army, not by poison, not by betrayal, by a sting. The man believed to be Egypt's first pharaoh, the ruler who helped to unify ancient Egypt, may have died because his own body overreacted to something tiny. And that is where this story stops being strange and starts becoming unsettling, because the wasp probably didn't kill him. His own body did. The very system designed to keep him alive, his immune system, may have seen a small threat and responded with such overwhelming force that it killed the person it was supposed to protect. The threat was minor. The response was catastrophic. And if that sounds like some bizarre accident from the ancient world, it is not. This still happens all the time. Severe allergic reactions kill or hospitalize huge numbers of people every year. Meanwhile, hippos, giant aggressive animals with a reputation for being deadly, kill far fewer. So yes, statistically speaking, your body can be more dangerous to you than a hippo. And allergies are only the beginning, because the same body that could misread a harmless sting can also reshape pain, distort emotion, and alter the way reality itself feels to you. Two people can go through the exact same moment, same room, same words, same temperature, and still have completely different experiences of it. Not because one of them is imagining things, but because their bodies are telling different stories. And once you really understand that, a lot of human behavior stops looking irrational and starts looking biological. Today, we're following that idea all the way down, from ancient Egypt to a brutal experiment on dogs to the neuroscience of pain, emotion, and sensitivity. Because this is not just a story about allergies, it is a story about the strange, uncomfortable fact that your body is not just sensing the world, it is interpreting it, and sometimes it gets the interpretation terribly wrong. In the early 1900s, a physiologist named Charles Richet was experimenting on dogs. He injected them with a toxin extracted from sea anemones. The dogs became sick, weak, nauseous, unstable, but after a few days, they recovered. So Richet did what seemed perfectly reasonable. He waited a week and injected them again. This time, the dose was smaller, and if the body works the way most people assume it does, the second exposure should have gone better. It should have adapted, it should have learned, it should have become more resistant. Instead, the dogs died almost immediately. Richet was stunned. Their bodies had not become stronger. They had become more reactive, more violent, more dangerous. The second exposure did not protect them, it destroyed them. That discovery would later be called anaphylaxis, and the logic of it is terrifying. Imagine preparing to lift something incredibly heavy. You brace your whole body, tense every muscle, and put maximum force into the movement. And then the object turns out to be almost weightless. All that force has nowhere to go. You lose control. You fall backwards. You get wrecked by your own overreaction. That is basically what anaphylaxis is. The immune system doesn't just defend, it overcommits. It launches an all-out emergency response against something that doesn't justify that level of force, and your own body gets caught in the blast. That is the nightmare at the center of this story. But the deeper question is even stranger. Why would the body do this at all? To understand that, we need to zoom in. Your skin, your eyes, your lungs, and your gut are lined with immune cells. Think of them as border guards. They are constantly scanning whatever enters your body from the outside world. When they encounter something unfamiliar, they break it apart, analyze fragments of it, and pass that information deeper into the immune system. Then the body creates antibodies, tiny recognition tools, a kind of molecular memory designed to identify that substance if it ever returns. In allergies, one antibody matters more than the others: IgE. This is where things start to go wrong. When someone becomes allergic, IgE attaches itself to immune cells and waits. Then, the next time that allergen appears, the alarm goes off instantly. Histamine and other chemicals flood the body. Blood vessels widen, tissues swell, inflammation surges. That's where the familiar symptoms come from: sneezing, itching, watery eyes, rashes, vomiting. But if the response escalates far enough, the consequences become much more serious. Blood pressure can crash, airways can tighten, the heart can lose rhythm. So the twisted reality is this: your immune system is trying to protect you by triggering a response that can kill you. And once you see that clearly, the obvious question becomes impossible to ignore. Why peanuts? Why pollen? Why shellfish? Why latex? Why would the body treat harmless things like mortal enemies? That is where the story gets even stranger. A virus makes sense as a target. A dangerous bacterium makes sense. A parasite makes sense. But pollen? Peanuts? Dust? Why would the immune system treat those like life or death threats? For years, one of the main theories was molecular mimicry. The idea was that some harmless substances may resemble, at a molecular level, parasites that our ancestors genuinely needed to fight off. So the immune system sees something harmless, mistakes it for something dangerous, and attacks. It's a smart theory, and it may explain part of the story, but it doesn't explain all of it. Penicillin doesn't neatly fit, nickel doesn't fit, latex doesn't fit either. So another theory emerged. Researcher Ruslan Medjitov proposed that maybe the immune system is not just reacting to what something is, maybe it's reacting to what that thing does. If a substance damages tissue, stresses cells, or disrupts the body in a way that feels dangerous, the immune system may learn to associate that substance with harm, and the next time it appears, it doesn't wait to verify the threat. It attacks first. Think of it like a fire alarm that doesn't detect smoke, it detects broken glass. It doesn't know what caused the damage, it only knows that last time the glass broke, something bad followed. So now, it panics early. And maybe that is what allergies really are. Not the body being stupid, not pure randomness, but an ancient defense system firing too soon, too hard, in the wrong environments. And if that's true, then modern life may be making the problem worse. Here's the paradox. In many places, the cleaner and more modern life becomes, the more allergies seem to rise. That sounds backwards. Cleaner water should help. Cleaner homes should help. Better hygiene should help. And in many ways it does. But at the same time, allergic disease often becomes more common. This is the basic idea behind the hygiene hypothesis. The immune system did not evolve in a sterile world. It evolved in dirt, in microbes, in parasites, in animal exposure, in constant environmental chaos. For most of human history, the body was surrounded by bacteria, worms, soil, and infection. And that may have mattered more than we realized, because those exposures may have helped train the immune system. They helped calibrate it. They taught it what was normal, what was dangerous, and what was actually worth reacting to. But modern life changed the training environment. Antibiotics, sanitized homes, processed food, less contact with soil, less contact with animals, less contact with the microbial world our ancestors lived in. All of that may be changing the way the immune system learns. And when an ancient system loses the signals that once helped guide it, it may start inventing enemies. In other words, the immune system didn't suddenly become irrational. It may have become undertrained, miscalibrated, confused. And that idea is unsettling, because it suggests something deeper than your body is broken. It suggests your body may be running ancient programming in a world it was never designed for, like old software trying to function on a completely different operating system. And once you notice that pattern, you start seeing it somewhere else too. Take pain, for example. Most people think pain is simple. Something hurts your body, a signal travels to your brain, and you feel pain. Clean, direct, mechanical. But that's not really how pain works. Pain is not just detected, it's constructed. In one study, researchers applied the exact same heat stimulus to the exact same spot for the exact same amount of time on different people. Then they asked them to rate the pain. The responses were wildly different. Some people said it barely hurt. Others rated it mere unbearable. Same heat, same location, same duration, completely different experience. And that should seriously bother you, because it means pain is not just about what is happening in the body. It's also about what the brain believes that sensation means. Pain is shaped by mood, stress, sleep, memory, hormones, fear, previous experience, and expectation. Your brain is constantly making decisions in the background. How dangerous is this? How much attention does this deserve? How intense should this feel? And those answers change from person to person. Researchers have even found that emotional context can change pain sensitivity before the painful stimulus even happens, which means the story your brain is already telling can alter what your body ends up feeling. There is no perfectly universal pain experience. There's only your pain, filtered through your biology, your history, your emotional states, and your nervous system's interpretation of what's happening. And once you realize that, one uncomfortable possibility immediately appears. Maybe this doesn't stop with pain. Maybe it extends into personality, emotion, and the way some people move through life itself. This is the part that matters most, because once you understand that bodies interpret the world differently, you start seeing sensitivity in an entirely different light. In everyday life, sensitive people are often treated as if there's something wrong with them. Too emotional, too reactive, too soft, too intense, too much. But what if that framing is completely backwards? What if sensitivity is not weakness at all? What if it's a different biological setting? Some people seem to have nervous systems that are simply more responsive. They notice more, they process more, they are affected more, not because they're fragile, but because they're tuned differently. Research on high sensory processing sensitivity suggests that some people are naturally more responsive to subtle information in their environment. They pick up tone changes, facial expressions, tension in a room, emotional undercurrents. They don't just notice more, they process it more deeply. And yes, that can make life harder. They can mean more overstimulation, more emotional fatigue, more internal weight. But here's the part people almost always miss. The same system that's more affected by the bad is also more affected by the good, more moved by kindness, more responsive to support, more transformed by beauty, meaning, love, and connection. So sensitivity is not just increased vulnerability, it's increased responsiveness to everything. That means the cost is real, but so is the upside. And maybe the goal is not to shame sensitive people into becoming duller. Maybe the goal is to understand what sensitivity actually is. Because once you do, it stops looking like weakness and starts looking like a nervous system with the volume turned up. And that brings us back to the bigger idea running through this entire video. From allergies to pain to emotional sensitivity, your body is not passively receiving reality, it's interpreting it. It's constantly making predictions. Is this dangerous? Is this painful? Does this matter? Should I react? And the answers are not universal. They change from person to person. What feels mild to one person can feel overwhelming to another. What one nervous system barely registers, another can experience as unbearable. And that doesn't automatically mean one of them is weak, dramatic, or wrong. It may simply mean their body is telling a different story. That may be what killed King Menes, a tiny sting interpreted as catastrophe. And in quieter, less dramatic ways, versions of that same pattern are still shaping all of us now. Our bodies are ancient. Their systems were built for worlds that no longer exist. Most of the time, they do an extraordinary job, but sometimes they overreact. Sometimes they misread the signal. Sometimes they try to protect us from dangers that aren't really there. And once you understand that, something important happens. You become more compassionate toward yourself when your body reacts in ways that seem irrational, and toward other people when their experience of the world looks nothing like yours. Because maybe they're not weak, maybe they're not exaggerating, maybe they're not broken, maybe their body is simply telling a different story. And from the inside, that story feels completely real. Your body's doing its best, it just doesn't always know what century it's living in. If this changed the way you think about your body, or about the people around you, share it with someone. Seriously, this is the kind of idea that can make people a little more understanding. If you're new here, subscribe. We make videos about science, psychology, and the strange mechanics of being human. And tell me in the comments, what are you most sensitive to? Physical pain, emotions, stress, noise, certain situations, certain people, anything. I really want to know. I'll see you in the next one.